Hello everyone, welcome back to ladensercrotchets. My name is Liz, and in this tutorial we're going to make this beautiful dress that is an extension of the puff sleeve of shoulder top that I recently uploaded on my YouTube channel. I hope you're going to enjoy the tutorial, and please do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get notified every time I upload a tutorial. To make the dress, you need to have already created this top. Check out the link in the description box for a tutorial to this top so that you can make it and then proceed with the dress. So this is the back part of the top, as you can see. I'm going to pull out the straps, and then you need to measure the waist of the top that you have, because you need to determine the waist that you're going to work. So take your waist measurements, then measure the waist of the top that you have right here. So I'm just going to be measuring this to determine how long it is, and to be able to know how much I need to increase to get to my waist measurements. So without stretching, the waist of this top is at 24 inches. Then when I do stretch, it's going to stretch up to around 30 inches. I'm working this dress for someone with a waist of 34, and because it's at 30, I'll need to increase up to 34 plus 2, which is 36. So I'm going to increase the waist part up to 36 inches, and then I'll continue working on the skirt to extend it into a dress. So I'm going to get a different color of yarn. I'm going to get the baby pink and make a slip knot. Then get one end of the top and reattach with a slip stitch. So I'm going to reattach at this point. Then I'll chain one and go back into that first stitch with a single crochet. Then into the next stitch, I'll do a double crochet. Then a single crochet into the next stitch. A double crochet into the next. Single crochet. Then double crochet. So this is the same stitch that we used in the top, where you alternate between a single crochet and a double crochet, and we're going to do this till we get to this end right here. Then once you get here, we'll do the increase in order to extend the waist. I've worked my last stitch, and at this point I need to do an extension in order to get to 36 inches because I'm at 30, and so I'll begin by chaining 10. Then I'll measure the 10 to see how many inches it is, and this is giving me 3 inches, so I'll chain 10 more for a total of 20, because if 10 is giving me 3, then it means 20 will give me 6 inches. Then I'll get the other end, turn my top like this, get this other end and reattach on the other end for a complete round. So at this point, on the first stitch, do a slip stitch. Then chain one and cut off the yarn. And now we've connected our top at that point in order to turn it into a dress. Now you're going to determine the middle stitch at this point, reattach the yarn, and continue working the skirt part. I'll turn my work to this side and then determine the 11th stitch from this side. So I'll count 11 stitches from here. Then on the 11th stitch, that's where I'm going to reattach the yarn. Make a slip knot and pull it through. Chain one, and then go back into that stitch with a single crochet. Then do a double crochet into the next stitch. A single crochet next, and the chains, then a double crochet into the next stitch. The next stitch gets a single crochet, the next one gets a double crochet, and the next one gets a single crochet. Then we have a double crochet next, single crochet next. Then I'm at this stitch that's supposed to be a double crochet, but we are on top of the double crochet from the previous row. So what I'll do is I'll work a double crochet into that stitch, and then into the same stitch I'll work a single crochet, just to ensure that my pattern does not get, I do not interrupt the pattern right here, because if I worked a double crochet right there and a single crochet next, then I will not be following the pattern, because right here there's supposed to be a double crochet. So I've worked a double crochet into this stitch and a single crochet into the same stitch. Next I'll work a double crochet on top of the single crochet, then next is a single crochet and then double, and I'll alternate until I get to this end. Once I get here, I'll continue with the pattern to the end. So work your stitches till you get to this end. At this end I have a double crochet and I've gotten to the chain stitches. So after the double crochet I should have a single crochet next. So in the next chain do a single crochet, then a double crochet into the next, followed by a single crochet. We're just alternating, basically alternate between a single crochet and a double crochet. So single crochet, then next is a double crochet, single crochet, then double, then into this stitch I'll place a single crochet, and because I began with a single crochet I cannot end with a single crochet, so I'll place a double crochet into that very first stitch and then complete the row with a slip stitch, then chain one and turn to begin the next row. I just ended with a double crochet and therefore I begin with a single crochet. Sorry, I ended on top of the single crochet because the single crochet was the first stitch, so I'll begin with a double crochet into that very first stitch, then a single crochet onto the double crochet. This is a single crochet, so there we place a double crochet. This is a double, so it gets a single crochet. The single crochet gets a double crochet. The next is a double, so it gets a single. The single crochet gets a double crochet, and we're just going to work one stitch into each of the stitches till you come to the end of that row. So every stitch there's an alternate stitch. So if it was a double crochet, it's going to be a single crochet. If it was a single crochet, it's going to be a double crochet, and you're going to work all the way around until you get to this point. At the end of this row I have a single crochet, and the first stitch was a double crochet, so I'm going to slip stitch on top of that double crochet, chain one and turn to begin the next row. And because the slip stitch is on top of the double crochet, the first stitch will be a single crochet, then the next one will be a double crochet. Now in this row I'm going to increase on the hips because we need to start increasing so that we can get the size of the hips that this dress is supposed to fit. And so I'll get stitch markers and mark these points on the parts of the hips, then I'll be working increases at those points. So to determine where the hips will be, this is how I hold my work. So I just get this last stitch and hold my project like this, then bring these two ends together. You can count the stitches, but I find it easier this way. So I'm going to mark this end and this other end. So get your stitch marker and mark that point, that stitch, then mark this other stitch right here. And those are the points of increase in order to hit the hip measurement. So now I continue working until I get to the stitch marker. So I'm at the double crochet stitch, alternate with the single crochet, then the double until you get to the stitch marker. At the stitch marker, you will need to pull it out. I'm going to be working on the single crochet stitch instead of the double. So in this stitch, I'll place a double crochet. Into the same stitch, place a single crochet. Into the same stitch, place another double crochet for a total of 3 stitches in that same stitch. Then get your stitch marker and mark the middle stitch, which was a single crochet right there. Then continue with a single crochet, alternate with a double crochet, then a single crochet, and do this until you get to the next stitch marker. My stitch marker is on the double crochet stitch, so I'll just pull it out. Then into that double crochet stitch, I'll just work a single crochet, then I'll increase in the single crochet stitch. So double crochet, single crochet, double crochet into the same stitch, and then mark that stitch, the middle stitch. Then continue to the end of the row while alternating. So single crochet, double crochet, at the end I have a double crochet. I slip stitch on top of the first single crochet, chain 1 and turn to begin the next row. We are on top of a single crochet, so we begin with a double crochet. So depending on what you ended with, actually the stitch you end with is the same stitch you begin with. So I ended with a double crochet, I've begun with a double crochet. So the next stitch is going to be a single crochet, and the next one will be a double crochet, and you're going to alternate until you get to the stitch marker. At the stitch marker in this row, we're not going to increase. So we'll be increasing in one row, the next row will not be an increase, but we continue marking that stitch so that we are sure where we're going to be increasing in the next row. So this is a row of non-decrease, just one stitch into every stitch, but then in the next row we're going to increase. So at this point, I'll just pull out the stitch marker and place a double crochet into that stitch. Then mark the stitch. Continue marking the stitch whether you're increasing or not. So mark the stitch and continue with a single crochet into the next stitch, a double crochet into the next, and we're going to do this till we get to the end. When you get to the next stitch, you're going to place one stitch into that marked part and continue marking the part, work all the way to the end of the row. Chain 1 and turn to begin the next row, and the next row begins with a single crochet into that first stitch, then followed by a double crochet into the next, a single crochet into the next until you get to the stitch marker. When you get to the stitch marker, we're going to increase at that point. My stitch marker is on the double crochet stitch, and this is a single crochet where I'm placing the double. So I'll pull out this stitch marker and place 3 stitches into that double crochet stitch. So we begin with a single crochet, followed by a double crochet, then followed by a single crochet into the same stitch and mark the middle stitch. Then alternate with the double crochet in the next stitch, single crochet into the next until you get to the next stitch marker, and do the same thing we've done here. Pull out this stitch marker, and it's on the double crochet stitch, so we place a single crochet, a double crochet into the same stitch, and a single crochet into the same stitch, then mark the middle stitch. Now we move on to the double crochet, single crochet, and continue till you get to the end of the row. My last stitch is a double crochet, and I slip stitch on top of the single crochet at the beginning to complete the row, chain 1 and turn. Since we've just increased in that previous row, the row that we're working right now will not be an increased row, and so we're going to just work one stitch into every of the stitches, including the marked stitches. When we get to this point, we just work one stitch. Same applies to this point, but we continue marking. So this row is going to be a row of no increase. The next row will be a row of increase. The other one will be no increase. The other one will be with an increase. So you alternate between an increase and no increase. And you're going to do that as you measure to make sure that you're hitting your hip measurements. So at this point, without stretching, my hip measurement is at around 16, which is 32 when multiplied by 2. If I stretch this, it's going up to 18, and that is 36 when multiplied by 2. And I'm working a hip measurement of 42, and therefore I should work until I get to 21 when stretched. And therefore I'll continue alternating my rows with one row of increase followed by a row of no increase. One increase, no increase in the next row until I hit my 21 inches when folded into 2, which will give me 42. So keep going like this until you get your hip measurement. Make sure that when you're measuring, you stretch out your work. So this was a single crochet stitch, and it gets a double crochet right there. Then the next one will get a single crochet, and the next one gets a double crochet, and keep going. Once you hit your hip measurement, we'll stop increasing. At this point, I have hit my hip measurement, and I've increased for a total of 6 rows. And I'm just going to check the measurement just to show you where I'm at. So at this point, I'm at 18 inches without stretching. Then once I stretch out this skirt, let's see how far it goes. So after stretching, it's going up to 21, which is exactly what I wanted. I'm at around 21.5, which is okay, because if you have a bit of an extension, then that would be better. I'm at 21.5 when it's stretched, and that will fit 43 inches, a hip size of 43. I was working 42, and 43 is only a difference of 1 inch, which is okay. And therefore, at this point, I do not need the stitch markers anymore. So I'll just pull them out, and now I'll just work one stitch into every stitch. And I'm going to work a number of rows that will give me the full length of the dress that I want. At this point, the full length of my dress is at, I'm measuring from this point, is at 16 inches. Right here, I begin with a double crochet, followed by a single crochet, and then a double. And then just one stitch. I went on to work the full length of my top, and at this point I'm going to measure just to make sure that I've hit my full length. Remember, we are working only one stitch into every stitch in all the rows until we hit the full length. When you're measuring, do not stretch when you're measuring the full length. I'm at 33 inches and I'm going to do the final row of this dress. I'll begin with a single crochet in the first stitch, then work 4 more single crochets for a total of 5 single crochets. I'll skip the 6th stitch and work in the 7. I'll work 5 more single crochets, 1 into every stitch. And then after the 5 single crochets, I'm going to skip the next one. Skip this, work in the next one, 5 single crochets. Then the next one will be a skipped stitch. And you're going to skip like this. You're going to work 5 single crochets, skip a stitch, another 5 single crochets, and then skip until you get to the end of the row. At the end of the row, I'm going to work 1 single crochet in the last stitch, then slip stitch in the first stitch, and then chain 1, then cut off the yarn, and at this point we are done. After cutting off the yarn, you're going to pull through and fasten, and then you're going to weave in that end that is right there. And then after that, you can attach your straps on the top and enjoy your dress. So thank you so much if you stuck around to the end of this tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're going to share your recreations with me, and I'll be reposting you on Instagram. So kindly subscribe if you're not subscribed and hit the notification bell, then share, like, and comment.